What is up guys, Clay Enjoyer here, and it's time to enjoy. And in this video, I made a squirrel with a gun, starting with a little body of armature wire and aluminum foil, because like all the sculptures I've literally ever made, they all have armatures because especially for this one, this squirrel has a really big tail that I'm going to need a little support for. But with the base of the body done, I can start smoothing it out to make it look a little less bumpy and more like a deformed chicken nugget. But even though it doesn't look that much like a chicken nugget, I'm gonna make some legs, which are also bits of clay. Surprise, surprise, this is just a channel full of absolute mystery. But once I get these two blobs of clay out of the way, the squirrel starts actually looking like a squirrel and less like a deformed chicken nugget. But there's a weird gap between the legs and the body, which is what this little piece of clay is for, so I can blend that in to hide that weird edge, as well as a bit more clay on top of that to make the squirrel look more like a squirrel, because whenever I looked at the picture that I was using for the squirrel with a gun, their legs kind of looked like that. This squirrel needs a little help balancing itself, so I can add it some feet. But these feet are a little bit big, but I didn't realize this until I had finished the project. But I do think in the end it did actually help out balance the massive gun, which was miscalculated in size, but it's okay because in the game the gun is massive in comparison to the squirrel, so like comedic value I guess. Making this gun is pretty simple. It's not that difficult. It's just an L-shaped piece of aluminum foil wrapped in clay that then gets baked and smoothed out with a sanding paper off camera. But I just thought that would be less interesting, so I totally just forgot. But I can go in with a little extra clay to smooth out some of the dips and make it look a little bit more squarular. But I can now make this gun look more like an actual gun with an oversized trigger guard and an incredibly tiny trigger to fit the entire gun aesthetic together. I thought I should say this now before the video goes any further. Just a quick PSA that this gun is not a gun. It is just a prop for a sculpture, but just in case, I'll put it in the little corner that it's not a gun. Alright, back to the video. With the top part of the gun done, I can add two sights on either side, because like a normal gun, that's how they work. And then I can also add a magazine, or at least a little lip to imply that a magazine is in there, because I think it would be pointless to hollow this sculpture out just to put in a fake magazine. But this gun is definitely not real, obviously, so it's super chunky. That's why the little muzzle's whole thing is super big. But I can add some extra grips and a random hole in front, and I've showed this gun off now. I can compare it to the squirrel, and then I can start adding the squirrel's arms now that I know roughly the scale that I'm sticking to. Which is not really that true, because in the picture the gun is even bigger and not as bulky, but at this point it's too late to turn back now. After I made the little hands, I can smooth out the fingers a little bit so they look a little bit more natural. Then I can smooth the hands into the arms to, again, make it look like it's supposed to. But then again, I say that for every single one of my sculptures, and it's like a 50-50 chance if it actually looks quote-unquote normal or not. But that fact out of the way, I can start building up a head with a little nose, mouth, and armature wire in the middle so I can hold it, even though I'm not holding it. But with the mouth made, I can then add the eye holes, which are eye holes with eyeballs. I don't know what you're thinking, it's not anything special, see? While I struggle off camera for about 5 minutes, I can finally figure out roughly where the squirrel's ears are supposed to go, which I think this is pretty close, but it's good enough. With the head done, I can put it to the side of its shoulders, because the squirrel is going to be looking like to the side / around the gun, because the gun is going to be kind of in its face. but I can then blend in the neck to make the squirrel look a little bit more correct. I can finally finish the squirrel off by giving him a nice beefy neck to hold up his head because I thought it looked weird otherwise. But it's now finally time to start painting the gun, which is a standard gunmetal silverish gray. But I didn't exactly have the correct color, so I had to make it. So if there's not enough like sparkle, then well, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I tried my best. With all the gun covered in this nice shiny gray, I need a little bit of extra variation, so how am I going to add that variation? With some lighter grays, of course. With a little bit of white mixed into the gray, it makes a nice lighter gray that can be used to make the gun look like it's been weathered and used, and make the gun look a little less uniform because I can make the damage around the gun look a little bit different depending on which angle and side it is, because I think it looks more interesting and well used than just, I don't know, something that's brand new. With the hole filled in and with black, I can now go back to the squirrel and start painting him. With the gun completely painted, I can set it off to the side and start painting the squirrel with this nice dark brown on the feet, hands, and nose, because for continuity it looks nice. And it was already a pre-bottled paint, which makes it even better. But it was a little bit shiny for some reason, and I tried to dull that shiny down with a little bit of varnish, but it didn't work super well. It only worked a tiny bit, but at this point I'm too lazy enough to just repaint it because I think it looks good. But I can paint over the other details like the eyes and the inner ears before painting the majority of the squirrel's body in this graham cracker-esque color. With a second layer of paint in place, I can actually start making the fur, which is a little thin layer of glue, and then this static grass that will be placed gingerly on top. I didn't actually have much of a plan when I was doing this, I just kind of jumped straight into it. So it may not look exactly the same, but at least I tried, because I think attempting this fur made it look better than it just being perfectly flat. It also looks like if Pikachu was a squirrel, which is, honestly, it's probably not that far off, but I can smush some of the fur down, except for on the tail, to make it look more real and to add a little bit of contrast, because I think a nice fluffy tail looks cool. And when my searching for tools, I found this airbrush. It works okay, it's pretty hard to see, but after a while, it works just enough. So I was able to get the squirrel this nice brown color, which is a little darker than I originally thought, because I thought that the yellow fur and the brown would like cancel each other out, so it would be a slightly lighter, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And I am worried about this airbrush because it barely worked, so I'm worried about trying to use it too long, because I was more praying that the thing actually worked. But the paint job looks pretty good. I can stipple a lighter brown in its chest area and a little bit down its legs, but it's going to be covered for the most part, unfortunately. But I can paint the eyes and a nose a black, because they had gotten painted over. With a little bit of white dots, I can glue the gun back into the squirrel's arms, and then it's now time to make a base. This base is pretty similar to bases I've done before, except the fact that this is actually a square instead of a circle, which can be painted black as a starting base color, because again, like all my other builds, most of the base coats are always black, because black is a nice color in comparison to this bright blue. But I did make a mistake, so I have to actually go back over the black with a brown, because I wanted this to be dirt. And then this is the grass that I'm going to sprinkle on top of for the squirrel to stand on. But with a little bit of variation and a little bit of trial and error off camera, because the gun made the thing so unbalanced, it's time for the reveal. Thank you for watching this video and hope you like and subscribe for more videos like this. I would just like to thank my subscribers for being the squirrel that carries this gun firing of a channel up and pushing out more content relatively consistently. Thank you, see you next video, bye.